There are a lot of different approaches to scale technique at the piano, and different ones work for different people. What I'm going to show you today is a way of training scales with a particular kind of arm movement to facilitate the action of the fingers and minimize hand and forearm tension. I'll be using a technique concept called the wheel, which comes from my main piano teacher from University of Montreal, Marc Durand. He was one of the most important people who helped me recover from tendinitis. I did make a video already explaining the basics of the wheel technique. To find that, you can go to my channel and search for the wheel piano technique. But this should still be useful anyway, as the pattern is going to become clear as I'm showing how to use it in scales. Before getting into scales, I want to quickly clarify a couple of questions that I've been asked about the wheel in the past. First of all, does it always go in a clockwise or counterclockwise direction? And the answer to that is the direction of the wheel is according to anatomy and not a standard direction. It's easiest to understand this using two hands together in contrary motion. If we go from the thumb to the pinky, the direction is under and back. Under this way and back with the elbows. If we go from the pinky to the thumb, the direction is over and forward. So with two hands together, we're going under, over. If you play the two hands in parallel motion, then the direction of the wheel is going to be opposite. So it would look like this. The other question I want to clear up is about the wrist. How much does the wrist actually bend when you're using the wheel? And the answer to that is very little. There's a mid-range of the wrist position where the action of the fingers is very easy. You can go a little bit above a straight wrist, and it's still easy. If you keep lifting up higher, then it becomes strained. You can also bend it downward a little bit, and it's still easy to move your fingers. You keep going at a certain point, then you're going to feel some strain. So the idea is we want to keep the wrist in its mid-range. It moves a little bit as we're going through the wheel, but the variation of height is going to be made by a combination of wrist, the joint at the top knuckle of your hand here, and also the movement of the elbow, which brings the forearm a little bit higher and lower. Now, how this applies to scales is that when you have a group of notes going only in one direction instead of up and down, then that's considered a half wheel. So 5 notes going up in the left hand would be a half wheel going over and in. Coming down in the left hand would be a half wheel going under and out. So the first step to applying this in scales is going to be to practice the fingering groups individually. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 5 at the top. And what I'm doing here is I'm using momentum to get in and out of the group. And making sure the movement through it feels smooth. If we play the groups coming downward in the right hand, then we're going to be doing half wheels coming over and in instead. Getting each group started is especially important. So if I'm starting on the thumb, I'll show this with my left hand. I'm approaching the thumb from above with a sort of down and back motion that sends me in the direction I want in the wheel. It's important to do that without the thumb collapsing. And this is something I have to work with my students to refine a lot. So there needs to be a bit of movement from the thumb to the 2, which doesn't cause the thumb structure to collapse. The thumb moves primarily from the first joint closest to the wrist. So try to get used to this motion. You can feel that mobility of the thumb when you're on the key. The hand can move right or left like that, and the majority of the thumb movement is coming from the first joint. And you can still feel a little bit of weight on the key as you're moving your hand around. And that's what we're going to use to get from 1 to 2 in the context of a wheel. It's quite small in practice, but that's the kind of movement we have to feel. Another point that often needs to be refined is that you need to get the thumb out of the way when you're playing the other fingers. So when I go to finger 2, 3, or 4, I'm feeling the alignment of my forearm with the hand and not with the thumb. You can play the thumb alone and then play the other fingers together and let your thumb come back behind the key so that you can feel a clean connection from the forearm to the fingers that are playing. The trickiest part of getting scales to be even and fluent, of course, is crossing over from one fingering group to the next. And for that, the wheel is extremely useful as well. Crossing over in the pinky to thumb direction is different from the thumb to pinky direction, so we have to look at these two things differently. I'll start with pinky to thumb. In this direction, it's going to be the 3 or the 4 that starts the new fingering group. So we need to get to the right place on the thumb. And when you're on the thumb, the hand is going to come over. That happens naturally because we're in the over portion of the wheel, and because the fingers are higher than the thumb, that makes a lot of sense. The thumb mobility is important again for getting the hand over the thumb and starting the new group. So by the time you play the thumb, it's like your 3 is already ready to play the next key. When we're going from thumb to pinky, the under portion of the wheel helps us to get the thumb around for the next group. How we're going to do that is by feeling a pivot on finger 3 or 4. So here I'm on the 3, and I'm going to use the swing of the momentum of that movement to get the thumb to the next note. You can do the same thing on the 4, feel your pivot, and then use the swing to get you to the thumb. I'm going to play a 2-octave scale a bit slowly so that you can see these half wheel groups happening as I go. As you're practicing scales this way, you want to focus on feeling a consistent weight connection between your arm and the fingertips. It can be a very light arm weight, but it's always there. And these arm movements are facilitating the transfer of weight from one note to the next. If you're not sure if it's working, you can play a few notes staccato and feel the sort of micro adjustments of shape that happen from one finger to the next. And then look for the same feeling as you're playing those notes connected. If you have black keys, that's going to affect some aspects of the position. Like on the B major scale, we can't come out as much because we need to stay over the black keys. You have to plan your movement so that you start from above. You can still come down and back when you're in the under part of the wheel. The part of the scale at the top where you're turning around is a good place to check in and see if you're actually doing this. When you have the notes coming up and down, you can see the smoothness of the motion because it's actually a full wheel at that point. A chromatic scale is an interesting way to practice this too because you have to stay close to the black keys. And you also need to adjust the finger shapes for the different heights of the keys. But you should be able to find the same feeling of the fingering groups forming micro wheels as you go through the scale. It's a little bit strange that we're using sort of an uneven movement of the arm to create an even sound across the scale. But it actually makes sense when you think about it because the fingers are all different lengths and shapes, and the keys are different heights as well. So we're doing all sorts of subtle, uneven things as we're going, but the sound will end up being even. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. You can let me know what you think or if you have any questions in the comments below. There's also a link in the video description that you can click to find out about working with me directly. Have a great day.